really appreciate this, and most of you are my friends, and I see you very often, and I really appreciate that you came. And thanks to the library, too, for inviting me to be part of the Littleton Reads program. As you heard some of the details there, but I was invited to talk about my Sherlock Holmes novel, My Dear Watson, which was just published in December. It's a pastiche novel, an imitation of an original work. As you know, Conan Doyle wrote the original Sherlock Holmes novels. And this is the first novel I've written, and it's the first time I've talked about it or read it in public, so you're sort of my guinea pigs. I've actually done quite a few readings before, but they've all been children's books. I've written children's picture books, and in fact, I read last month at the Shaker Lane School to preschoolers. And so this was for Read Across America Week, and I read my picture books to them, and it's a completely different experience where, you know, they all sit on the floor with their bottoms on the floor, as the teachers say, and, you know, I hold my book up and I talk like this, and they're very good, they're very quiet at first, and then they start chuckling and then laughing, and then they're laughing so loud it's deafening. I can't even hear myself read. And then after it's over, they're, you know, raising their hands like this for questions, and I call on them, and then they're like, you know, I like elephants. That's their question. So this is, you can see it's a little bit different for me to read to grown-ups and talk to adults. So anyway, as you heard, this is my book, My Dear Watson, and it was published just a few months ago. So anyone would think it was a new book, right? But wrong. It was published, or it was written 25 years ago. Yes, I won't tell you how old I was then, but pretty young, way before I had any children's books or even before I had children. But it didn't get dusty sitting under my bed all that time, not exactly. Let me tell you the story behind the story and how, when, and why I came to write it. I had read a lot of the Conan Doyle stories, but I was inspired to write this when I saw two great movies about Sherlock Holmes, The 7% Solution and Young Sherlock Holmes. Of course, I grew up watching the classic Basil Rathbone, Nigel Bruce movies, but it wasn't until I saw these movies that I thought, I could write one of those. And the idea occurred that since Holmes was dubbed the master of disguise, he could have been disguised his whole life. And because he had never married or showed any interest in women, I speculated he could have been a woman posing as a man. After all, a woman back in the Victorian era would certainly never have been taken seriously as a consulting detective, and she wouldn't have even been given a chance. I was also interested in exploring what this would mean for the relationship between Holmes and Watson. Would they be lovers? Yeah. No. Didn't want to go there. Well, would Watson know and accept Holmes as a woman? No to that, too. It would have been too hard for a traditionalist like Watson to accept that. All I could imagine was that Holmes, no matter what her feelings for Watson, would have to keep the secret to herself. Unfortunately, despite what I call Robert Downey Jr.'s no-shirt Sherlock, Victorian men normally didn't go around bare-chested most of the time. I also wrote it from the point of view of Sherlock Holmes, unlike the original stories by Conan Doyle, which were written in the voice of Watson. I thought it would be interesting to get into the head of the main character, whose mental processes appear so brilliant and mysterious to everyone. Now, because it's about Sherlock Holmes, it would make sense to assume I'm a rabid Holmes fan. Well, unfortunately, I'm going to disappoint you. I'm not one of those fanatics who has read every one of the 56 stories and 4 novels in the canon, and can tell you who said what in which one. There are a lot of people out there that are like that, though, believe me. I do enjoy them, but there are many other things I enjoy, too. I really just wrote it on a lark to see it if I could do it. It's kind of sacrilege in the Sherlock Holmes world to say that. I wrote the book partly just to see if I could write a novel, and partly because I was between jobs and I had the time. I used a pen and pad of paper for the first draft, even though, yes, typewriters did exist back then. But I felt, as I really still do, that for me, the words flow out of my head, down my arm, out of my fingers, through the pen, and onto the page. That's what works for me.